December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The morning air is calm, warm, almost lazy. Sailors move slowly across the decks of the USS Arizona. Some laugh, some sip coffee, others write letters home. It feels like just another quiet Sunday in paradise. Then, a sound. Low at first. Distant. Engines. You can almost hear the confusion ripple across the harbor before anyone even looks up. Then someone points. Planes. Too low. Too fast. Too many. A red circle flashes beneath the wings. Those aren't ours. And in the next second, everything explodes. Bombs tear through steel. Torpedoes slice into battleships. The Arizona erupts in a fireball so violent it lifts the ship out of the water. Men are thrown into the air like rag dolls. Smoke swallows the sky. The harbor is no longer calm. It's hell. Japanese pilots scream through the chaos, diving, firing, pulling up just above the water. Their mission is precise, brutal, calculated. Cripple the Pacific Fleet. Break America's will. End the war before it even begins. And for a moment, it looks like they've done it. 8 battleships damaged or destroyed. Hundreds of aircraft wiped out. More than 2,400 Americans dead in a matter of hours. Back in Tokyo, the early reports arrive fast. Success. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the architect of the attack, listens carefully. He understands something others don't. This wasn't victory. It was a gamble. A dangerous one. Because Yamamoto had studied America. He had lived there, seen its factories, its cities, its endless capacity to produce. And even as others celebrate, he quietly warns, "I fear all we have done is to awaken a sleeping giant." But what they didn't know was that giant wasn't just awake. It was about to build something the world had never seen. December 8th, 1941. Washington, D.C. President Franklin D. Roosevelt stands before Congress. His voice is steady, controlled, but beneath it, something else. Resolve. A date which will live in infamy. The words echo across radios, across cities, across farms and factories, and something shifts, not fear, not hesitation, but unity. Within days, millions of Americans are volunteering. Lines stretch outside recruitment centers. Young men sign their names, not knowing where they'll be sent, or if they'll come back. But the real transformation isn't happening on the battlefield. Not yet. It's happening somewhere else. Factories, assembly lines, places most people would never think of as weapons of war. Detroit, Michigan. At the massive Ford River Rouge plant, the machines are already running. But now, everything changes. Car factories stop making cars. They start making tanks. Engines meant for civilian vehicles are redesigned for bombers. Conveyor belts that once carried steel frames now carry pieces of war. And it doesn't stop there. Across the country, industries shift overnight. Typewriter companies begin producing rifles. Refrigerator manufacturers start building aircraft parts. Even toy makers are pulled into the effort. America isn't just preparing for war, it's transforming into something else entirely, a machine. But here's the part no one expected. Speed. Because it's not just how much America produces, it's how fast. Liberty ships, massive cargo vessels critical for supplying Allied forces, are being built at a rate that seems impossible. Before the war, constructing a ship could take months. Now, weeks. Sometimes, days. Workers, many of them women entering the workforce for the first time, labor around the clock. Sparks fly from welding torches. Steel plates slam into place. The noise never stops, and neither does the output. Planes roll off assembly lines in numbers that defy belief. Hundreds, then thousands, then tens of thousands. Each one carrying the same message. This war isn't ending quickly. It's just beginning. Meanwhile, across the Pacific, Japanese leaders review their strategy. The plan had been simple. Strike hard. Force negotiation. Secure dominance. But reports begin to come in. Strange ones. America isn't slowing down, it's accelerating. Factories are expanding, shipyards multiplying, production numbers climbing at a rate that doesn't make sense. At first, they dismiss it. Propaganda. exaggeration. But then everything changes, because numbers don't lie. And soon those numbers will start appearing on the battlefield, in steel, in firepower, in overwhelming force. And somewhere, deep inside the calculations of Japan's high command, a question begins to form. What if Pearl Harbor didn't end the war? What if it started something they couldn't stop? Early 1942. The Pacific is still burning. Japanese forces sweep across Southeast Asia with terrifying speed. The Philippines fall. Singapore collapses. The Dutch East Indies, rich in oil, are seized. One victory after another. From Tokyo, it looks like the plan is working. America is reeling, retreating, bleeding. But what they didn't know was this wasn't America at full strength. Not even close. Back in the United States, something unprecedented is unfolding. War Production Board, Office of War Mobilization, new names, new systems. One goal, total output. Factories don't sleep anymore. Lights stay on all night. Workers rotate in shifts, 12 hours, sometimes more. The hum of machinery becomes the heartbeat of a nation at war. And everywhere you look, there are new faces. Women, millions of them. They step into roles never imagined before. Riveters, welders, machinists, aircraft assemblers. Rosie the Riveter isn't just a poster, she's real. You can almost hear the steady clang of metal as she drives a rivet into the frame of a bomber. Sweat on her brow, determination in her eyes. Because this war isn't just being fought overseas, it's being built at home. In California, at the shipyards of industrialist Henry J. Kaiser, the impossible becomes routine. Mass production of ships, not one at a time, but in pieces. Sections are built separately, then assembled like a puzzle. Faster, cheaper, smarter. A Liberty ship slides into the water every few days, then every 2 days. Then, in one astonishing case, just over 4 days from keel to launch. The Japanese Navy had planned to choke Allied supply lines, but now there are too many ships to sink. And in the skies above America's factories, something else is taking shape. Bombers, thousands of them. The B-17 Flying Fortress, bristling with guns. The B-24 Liberator, longer range, built in staggering numbers. Entire plants are dedicated to nothing else. At Ford's Willow Run factory, one B-24 rolls off the line every hour at peak production. Think about that. An entire heavy bomber. Every hour. But here's where the story takes a turn. Because Japan had underestimated something fundamental. Scale. America isn't just replacing its losses, it's multiplying its power. Midway. June 1942. The first real test. Japanese carriers move in confident they've dominated the Pacific so far. Their pilots are experienced, elite. They expect another victory. But something is different. American codebreakers have been listening, waiting. And when the battle begins, the tide turns. Dive bombers from the USS Enterprise and USS Yorktown scream down from the sky. In minutes, 3 Japanese carriers are burning, then 4, gone. Just like that. It's a shock, a devastating one. Because for the first time, Japan isn't advancing, it's losing. But even then, Japanese leaders still believe they can recover. They still think America will tire, that the cost will become too high, that negotiations are still possible. But what they didn't see was what was coming next. Late 1942, Guadalcanal, a brutal grinding campaign. Jungle, disease, constant fighting. Both sides suffer, but behind every American soldier, there's something invisible. Support. Ships bringing supplies, planes replacing losses, fresh troops arriving, again, and again, and again. Japan can't keep up. Its supply lines are stretched thin. Its industry can't replace ships and aircraft fast enough. Every loss hurts. Every battle drains them. And back in the United States, production doesn't slow down. It accelerates. By 1943, the numbers become staggering. Tens of thousands of aircraft per year, thousands of tanks, millions of rifles, mountains of ammunition. It's no longer just a war effort, it's a flood. And now that flood is crossing the ocean, heading straight toward Japan. Somewhere in Tokyo, analysts stare at the reports. More ships, more planes, more everything. It doesn't make sense. How can one country produce this much, this fast? And for the first time, doubt begins to creep in. Quiet at first, but growing. Because the reality is becoming impossible to ignore. This war is turning into something Japan cannot win. The war in the Pacific has changed, not in one single moment, but slowly, relentlessly, like a tide that never stops rising. Somewhere over the Solomon Islands, a formation of American fighters cuts through the sky. The F-6F Hellcat. Fast, durable, deadly. But what's more important, there are so many of them. Japanese pilots had once ruled these skies. Veterans of China, masters of the Mitsubishi A6M0. They were feared, respected, untouchable. But what they didn't know was the rules had changed. At first, they laugh. The Hellcat looks heavier, less agile. American pilots, less experienced. It feels like the same story, until it isn't. Because this time, when a Hellcat goes down, another one replaces it, then another, then another. American training programs are producing pilots at a pace Japan cannot match. Shorter training? Yes, but backed by better aircraft, better tactics, better coordination, and overwhelming numbers. You can almost see it happen. A Japanese pilot dives, scores a hit, pulls away. But then, more planes, more guns, more enemies than he expected, more than he can handle. Then everything changes. Because the skies are no longer Japan's. They belong to whoever can keep showing up. And America never stops showing up. On the ground, the story is the same. Island after island. Tarawa, Kwajalein, Saipan. Each one harder than the last. Each one defended to the death. But behind every American landing, there's an entire ocean of support. Battleships firing from miles away. Aircraft carriers launching wave after wave of planes. Supply ships unloading endless crates of ammunition, food, fuel. It's not just an invasion. It's a system. A machine that feeds itself. And this is where the story takes a turn. Because Japan had prepared for decisive battles. Short wars, moments of brilliance. But not this. Not a war of attrition. Not a war where the enemy keeps getting stronger. Back in Japan, the numbers are becoming impossible to ignore. Reports pile up. Lost aircraft, lost pilots, lost ships. But replacing them, that's the problem, because Japan's factories are running at full capacity, and it's still not enough, not even close. Meanwhile, in the United States, production reaches levels no one thought possible. By 1944, America is producing nearly 100,000 aircraft in a single year. Let that sink in. 100,000. It's not just more than Japan. It's more than every Axis power combined. At sea, the balance shifts even more dramatically. New carriers, light carriers, escort carriers, dozens of them, each one carrying fighters, bombers, torpedo planes, each one extending America's reach further across the Pacific. The Japanese Navy, once dominant, now faces something it cannot counter. Presence. Everywhere. Battle of the Philippine Sea. June 1944. The moment it becomes undeniable. Japanese forces launch wave after wave of aircraft. Hundreds of planes. A massive strike meant to turn the tide. But waiting for them is a wall. Radar-guided interceptions, well-trained American pilots, and overwhelming firepower. What follows is devastating. American pilots begin calling it the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. Plane after plane falls from the sky. Pilots lost, aircraft gone, experience erased in a single day. And here's the part that changes everything. Japan can't replace those pilots. It takes years to train them, years they don't have. America? It replaces its losses in weeks. You can almost feel the shift, not just in battles, but in momentum. Because now, every fight has the same outcome. Japan loses something it cannot recover. America gains something it can multiply. Back in Tokyo, the realization is spreading, quietly, carefully, because no one wants to say it out loud. But they're all thinking it. This war is slipping away, and yet they keep fighting. Because what else can they do? But what they still don't know is that the worst is yet to come, because America hasn't just caught up. It's about to overwhelm everything in its path. Late 1944. The Pacific map is changing again, but this time, it's not gradual. It's collapsing. American forces move closer and closer to Japan itself, island by island, airfield by airfield, each capture tightening the noose. The island of Saipan falls, then Guam, then Tinian. Small dots on a map, but strategically devastating. Because now, something new enters the war. Something Japan had hoped would never happen. Long-range bombing. From these islands, a new weapon takes off. The B-29 Superfortress. Massive, advanced, capable of flying higher and farther than anything Japan can effectively stop. At first, the missions struggle. High-altitude winds, mechanical issues. But then, everything changes. March 9th, 1945. Tokyo. Night. The city sleeps under a cold sky. Then, engines. Hundreds of them. B-29s approach in formation, low and fast. Not high-altitude precision bombing anymore. This is something else. Incendiary bombing. You can almost see it from above. Rows of bombs falling in patterns. Then fire. Then more fire. Then a storm. Wooden homes ignite instantly. Flames spread faster than people can run. The air itself begins to burn. Winds intensify into a firestorm, pulling oxygen from the streets, suffocating those who try to escape. In a single night, Tokyo becomes an inferno. Over 80,000 people killed, entire districts erased, and this is where the reality becomes unavoidable. Japan cannot stop this. Not the bombers, not the production behind them, not the endless stream of aircraft crossing the Pacific, because while Japan struggles to defend its skies, America keeps building. More B-29s, more fighters, more ships, always more. At sea, it's even worse. American submarines silently cut through Japanese supply lines. Oil tankers vanish. Cargo ships disappear. Food, fuel, materials, gone. Japan begins to starve. Not just its people, but its war machine. Planes sit grounded without fuel. Ships remain in port, unable to sail. Factories slow down, then stop. But what they didn't know was America wasn't finished yet. April 1945. Okinawa, the last barrier before Japan, and one of the bloodiest battles of the war. Japanese forces fight with everything they have left, including something new: desperation. Kamikaze attacks, pilots flying directly into American ships. No return, no survival, only impact. You can almost feel the tension on the decks. Radar alarms blaring, lookouts shouting, guns firing non-stop into the sky. And still, planes get through. Explosions rip through ships. Fire, smoke, chaos. But even here, even in the face of this level of sacrifice, the outcome doesn't change. Because for every ship damaged, there are more behind it. For every loss, there is replacement. That's the difference now. Not courage, not strategy, but capacity. Japan is fighting with everything it has left. America is fighting with everything it can still produce. And those are not the same thing. Back in Tokyo, leaders face a reality they can no longer ignore. Cities burning, supply lines gone, air superiority lost, Navy shattered. The plan that began at Pearl Harbor has completely failed. Because instead of breaking America, they built something unstoppable. And now, that unstoppable force is at their doorstep. Summer 1945. Japan is still fighting, but now, it's fighting alone. Its empire is gone. Its navy, once one of the most powerful in the world, is no longer a force. Ships sit idle, fuel tanks empty. What remains of the fleet is scattered, damaged, and trapped. Its air force? A shadow. Pilots are rushed through training. Some barely know how to land. Planes are outdated. Resources are scarce. And yet, they are still sent into the sky. But what they didn't know was the war had already been decided. Not on a battlefield, but in factories. Back in the United States, production has reached its peak. Numbers that once sounded impossible are now reality. Over 300,000 aircraft produced during the war. Thousands of ships launched, millions of vehicles, weapons, and tons of supplies. You can almost picture it. Assembly lines stretching endlessly. Workers moving in rhythm. Steel becoming weapons. Faster than anyone thought possible. This isn't just industrial strength, it's industrial domination. And now, all of it is focused on one final objective. Japan. American bombers continue their relentless campaign. City after city. Night after night. Fires, destruction, collapse. The Japanese homeland is no longer safe. Nowhere is. But even then, Japan does not surrender. Not yet. Because surrender is unthinkable. Because honor demands resistance. Because they still hope, somehow, something might change. But then, it does. August 6th, 1945. Hiroshima. Morning. The sky is clear. Then, a single aircraft appears. The Enola Gay. No massive formation. No warning. Just one plane. You can almost feel the stillness below. Civilians moving through their day, unaware. Until a flash. Brighter than anything. A light that erases shadows. Then, silence. For a fraction of a second. Before everything disappears. The explosion is unlike anything seen before. A city, gone. In an instant. 3 days later. Nagasaki. Another bomb. Another city destroyed. And this is where the story ends. Not with a battle. Not with a final charge. But with a realization. Japan cannot continue. Not against this. Not against an enemy that can destroy entire cities in a single strike. Not against a nation that never stopped building. Never stopped advancing. Never stopped overwhelming. August 15th, 1945. Emperor Hirohito speaks. For the first time, his voice reaches the people. He announces surrender. The war is over. And in that moment, the meaning of Pearl Harbor becomes clear. It was supposed to end the war. A decisive strike. A crushing blow. A way to force America to step back. But instead, it did the opposite. It united a nation. It awakened its full potential. It transformed an entire economy into a weapon. And once that transformation began, there was no stopping it. Because the real power of the United States wasn't just its army, or its navy, or its technology. It was its ability to build. Faster. More. Relentlessly. Pearl Harbor didn't break America. It created something far more dangerous. A giant that didn't just wake up, but learned how to produce victory.